DISOVERED. My daughter sold our $3 million ranch and surprised me with a heartwarming $16,000 check. Tom McAllister, a rugged 55-year-old rancher from the wide-open fields of Montana, had always believed in the American dream. The family ranch had been his life, a legacy passed down from father to son. He spent countless sunrises teaching his only daughter, Lily, the importance of hard work. Together they had baled hay, mended fences, and shared laughter as the horses roamed, creating a bond sealed by sweat and love. But now that bond was teetering on a precipice, and he was standing on the edge. His heart raced as he stood at the door of their weathered farmhouse. When Lily walked in, her smile radiated pride. "Dad, I graduated," she announced, her eyes sparkling with the joy of achievement. Pride tried to bubble over in Tom's chest, until her next words shattered the moment. "I sold the ranch." His breath caught in his throat, disbelief washing over him like a cold wave. $3 million, a number that symbolized hard work, sacrifice, and years of blood, sweat, and tears. And there she stood, offering a flimsy check for $16,000. It didn't just represent money, it was a dagger to his heart. "Lily, how could you?" he rasped, anger and betrayal cracking his voice. How could she toss aside their legacy in pursuit of something unknown? Memories flooded his mind. The summer sunsets spent telling stories on the porch, the times they rallied with neighbors during tough winters. This was more than land, it was family. "Dad, this is for your freedom," she insisted, her voice strained, eyes glossed with tears. It should have been a time for celebration, but instead the air crackled with tension. "I want you to live for yourself now. We can start fresh." Did she even grasp the weight of what she was asking him to let go? The world they built, the values they cherished, could they really be traded for a fleeting idea of freedom? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The argument swirled around them like autumn leaves caught in a storm. Tom's heart was pounding, heavy with loss, and for the first time, anger fueled his words. "You've forgotten who you are. Who we are," he shouted, voice breaking as pain twisted inside. In that moment, the warmth of summer felt like a distant memory, replaced by the stark cold reality of a rift that seemed impossibly wide. Days passed like a slow burn, the silence between them thick and suffocating. On the surface, life continued. Neighbors waved and the ranch hum buzzed. Yet Tom felt hollow, grappling with the emptiness that came from not just the ranch, but from losing his daughter's respect for the values instilled in her since childhood. As the wind howled outside, Tom clutched the check in his calloused hands, the numbers blurring with tears. Could he find a way to forgive her, to understand? Or was it too late for the bonds they once shared? The clash of tradition against change lingered like a storm cloud, heavy and dark, just waiting to break. Tom sat alone at the kitchen table, the chair creaking beneath his weight, a weight that felt heavier than the world itself. He stared at the check, its paper crisp yet unfamiliar, a symbol of everything that was now lost. The sunlight poured through the window, bathing the room in a warm glow, but it did little to thaw the coldness that had settled in his heart. He thought about Lily and all those years they spent together, her first steps, her laughter ringing in the air like music, the sweet times they shared baling hay and tending to the horses. Those memories felt like ghosts now, haunting him with every passing moment. The ranch had held them together, a backdrop of love and loyalty, a sanctuary filled with life and beauty. Now it was gone, as if someone had ripped that chapter out of his life without asking. As he ruminated in silence, the wind howled outside, whipping around the old house like a grieving spirit. In his mind, Tom replayed their last conversation, each word a sting that echoed painfully. "Dad, I want you to be free," she had said. But to him, freedom felt like betrayal. Lily could have told him what she planned. They could have really talked. But instead she took the leap without him. It was like she was on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump, and he was left holding onto the roots anchored deep in the earth. In that moment, Tom realized he was terrified of what that jump meant for both of them. Then there was a knock at the door, sharp and insistent, breaking through the heavy air. Tom sighed, already feeling the reluctance to face whoever it was. Maybe it was a neighbor checking in, trying to see if he needed help or just feeling sorry for him. With a heavy heart, he pushed back the chair and rose from the table, the wood gliding against the floor with a groan. When he opened the door, he found Mrs. Carpenter standing there, her eyes filled with concern. "Tom, I just wanted to check on you. I heard about the ranch." Her voice trailed off, leaving the words hanging in the air like an unwelcome cloud. "Yeah, it's a lot to take in," he replied, struggling to mask the tremor in his voice. He didn't want the sympathy. He didn't want pity. "We're fine," he added, maybe a bit too sharply. "Tom, I've known you for years. You've been there for me during tough times, and I just want you to know I'm here for you too. And for Lily," she said gently, her hand resting on his arm, an anchor in his storm. "She loves you, you know. And this must be hurting her just as much." Tom could feel the lump swelling in his throat. It hit him hard. He hadn't considered how this loss might be tearing Lily apart too. The stubborn pride had blinded him from seeing her side, the turmoil she might be facing. Maybe she really thought she was doing it for him, even if he wasn't ready to accept it. As Tom nodded, something shifted slightly in his heart. Out there in the world, amid all this change, perhaps he could still find a path back to her. But first he had to confront his own feelings, jump into the unknown just like she did. Before he could voice any of this to Mrs. Carpenter, a sharp shriek interrupted them from nearby. It was the sound of a horse in distress. Both of them turned, the warmth of earlier stripped away by immediate concern. "What's that?" Tom asked, instincts kicking in. He could tell something wasn't right. He dashed toward the barn, heart racing as the urgency of the moment took over his hesitation. There was little time to reflect now, but what awaited him in that barn would challenge everything he thought he knew about family, legacy, and what it meant to truly support someone you loved. Would it bring them closer, or tear further apart? As Tom rushed toward the barn, he barely noticed Mrs. Carpenter's footsteps trailing behind him. The horse's desperate call echoed in his ears, punctuating the tension in the air. Each heartbeat quickened his thoughts, and as he pushed the creaky barn door open, the hollow sound seemed to resonate with his unease. The sight that greeted him was chaotic. Dust motes danced in the streams of light filtering through the gaps in the old wood. The horse, a beautiful chestnut mare named Bella, was twisting and bucking in her stall, her eyes wide with fear. She had been spooked, probably by something outside that Tom couldn't yet see. The moment he set eyes on her, he felt a pang of connection, a reminder of all the times Lily had ridden that horse. His instincts kicked in. "Hey girl, easy now," he called softly, stepping closer. Bella's breathing was rapid, her nostrils flaring. It was an instinctive reaction, and the real challenge was to calm her down. He reached out slowly, making himself small to avoid frightening her further. Just as his fingers brushed against her neck, a loud crack echoed outside. Tom froze and Bella reared back, snorting in panic. No, it's okay," he shouted, trying to drown out the fear that gripped him. The thought that something or someone might be threatening Bella made his blood boil. Mrs. Carpenter hovered at the entrance, her breath shallow, her eyes wide with concern. "What was that?" she asked, glancing nervously toward the barnyard. "Just keep an eye out." "I think I can handle this," he replied, forcing calmness into his voice. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. Memories of Lily flooded his mind. How she had stood beside him as a small girl learning to ride, her laughter ringing in the chilly air. With gentle persistence, Tom spoke soothingly to Bella, moving his hands with care, just as he used to do with Lily when she was scared. "You're all right, Bella. Just breathe with me." Gradually, he could see the tension in her body easing. She stopped pulling against the halter, and her ears began to twitch toward him, acknowledging his presence. "Success. Good girl," he murmured, tension flooding out of him as he let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. But as he straightened up, a nagging thought nagged at the back of his mind. What if Bella's fright was just a subtle echo of something larger? Turning toward Mrs. Carpenter, he noticed her expression had shifted from concern to curiosity. "You think it was just a noise?" she asked, stepping cautiously into the barn. "I don't know," he replied, unease creeping back in. "But with everything that's happened lately, I can't shake the feeling that it's more than just a horse spooking. He reached for Bella's halter, intent on checking her surroundings. The light shone on the barn door, catching a glint of something on the ground, an unfamiliar glimmer that wasn't there before. Curious, he leaned down and picked up a small metal object. It was half buried in the dirt, shining unnaturally against the dusty backdrop. Tom turned it over in his palm, heart racing. It was a key, engraved with an intricate symbol he didn't recognize. What could this unlock? And why was it here now, at this point of upheaval in his life? A sense of dread mingled with excitement surged through him. Whatever this key opened might hold answers he wasn't sure he was ready to face. What is it? Mrs. Carpenter asked, peering over his shoulder. I don't know, he said, looking between the key and her face. But I have a feeling this might lead to something significant. Suddenly the barn seemed smaller, the air heavier. As their gazes locked, a wave of understanding passed between them. They both knew this could either be a new beginning or a door to confusion. The question hung in the air. What would they discover next? And would it push Tom even further away from Lily, or bring them together in the way he desperately hoped? With a determined nod, he tucked the key into his pocket. This would be the first step into the unknown. And whatever lay ahead, he had to face it both. For himself and for Lily. Let us find out what this unlocks, he said, moving toward the barn doors. But in the back of his mind, a deeper question stirred. What if this key not only revealed secrets about the ranch but also secrets about his daughter, the truth behind her choice to leave? As Tom stepped out of the barn, a gust of wind whipped around him, carrying the faint scent of rain. The sky, darkening above the hills, mirrored the uncertainty swirling in his chest. He looked back at Bella, who was finally beginning to calm down, her breaths evening out. It was a small comfort, but it steadied him as he faced the unknown. Mrs. Carpenter was still at his side, her brow furrowed with concern. What if it's nothing? She asked softly, almost as if trying to lift the weight of fear that seemed to hang between them. Tom shrugged, trying to ignore the chill creeping up his spine. What if it is? I can't just ignore it. He began to walk towards the pasture, his thoughts racing faster than his feet. The key in his pocket felt like a lead weight, heavy with possibilities. Every step echoed his growing determination to uncover the truth. As they approached the gate leading to the fields, Tom caught sight of what had startled Bella. Branches had been knocked loose from the old oak tree, some lying shattered in the grass, while others hung precariously, swaying ominously above. He clenched his jaw. It wasn't just the horse. It was a reminder of all the chaos that had enveloped their lives since Lily left, an unending tidal wave of unanswered questions. I'll check it out, he said, swinging the gate open. Be careful, Mrs. Carpenter said, taking a step back, eyes trained on the swaying branches. Tom watched the wind twist through the trees, then took a deep breath and stepped into the field. He could almost hear Lily's laughter, hear the sound of her carefree spirit riding along with the breeze, darting through the tall grass. But that was a memory now, a ghost of what he had lost. The weight of that absence had never felt heavier. As he moved forward, he found himself glancing at the surrounding landscape, searching for more than just the remnants of the storm. The fields were vast and sprawling, but they felt hollow without Lily's joy illuminating them. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the corner of his eye made him stop. A figure, cloaked in the shadows cast by the trees, stumbled toward him. Tom's heart raced again, not out of fear, but anticipation. What if this was connected to everything? What if this was someone who could finally provide answers? As the figure emerged into the light, relief surged through Tom, quickly followed by confusion. It was someone he recognized from the community, Grace, the local historian, and someone who had always cared deeply about the ranch's legacy. Tom! Grace called out, her voice a mix of urgency and concern. You need to be careful. There are things happening that you're not aware of. His mind reeled. What do you mean? What things? She stepped closer, glancing back toward the barn like she expected someone to jump out at any moment. It's about Lily and why she really left. Tom's breath caught. The idea that Grace might have information about his daughter triggered a desperate hope in him. What about my daughter? She's involved in something much larger, something tied to this land and its history. The key you found? It's not just a key. It's a map. A connection to everything she's been trying to keep hidden. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Tom could feel his heart racing, beating with both dread and a flicker of excitement. What did this mean? Grace, please tell me everything, he urged, stepping closer, his voice thick with emotion. As she prepared to speak, a distant rumble of thunder echoed, sending a shiver racing down Tom's spine. The storm was coming. It was time to face whatever truths lay hidden, both about the ranch and about Lily. He needed to know what she had walked away from. Tom locked eyes with Grace, both of them surrounded by the darkening sky and whispers of unsettled history. What was she involved in? Just as she opened her mouth to answer, another deep crack of thunder echoed, louder this time, drowning out all other sounds. For a moment everything seemed frozen in time, each heartbeat a countdown to the unraveling of the truth. Could he handle what was about to be revealed? And just how would it change everything he thought he knew about Lily? Tom's breath was caught in his throat as he waited for Grace's reply. The tension was so tight it felt as if the world had paused, holding its breath alongside him. The distant thunder rolled again, and he could see in Grace's eyes that this wasn't going to be easy. Tom, it's complicated, she started, glancing back at the barn once more, as if the shadows could swallow her words. Lily, she didn't just leave on a whim. She's tangled up in something that goes back generations, something that could change everything we know about this land. What do you mean? Tom's voice was barely a whisper, a blend of fear and curiosity. What could possibly be so important? The land, it's not just farmland. It's part of an ancient connection. There are stories, legends that have been kept hidden. Lily found something that ties her to all of this. Grace took a step closer, her expression earnest. She felt she had to protect it. Tom felt a surge of emotion. Protect what? Why hadn't she told him? But why wouldn't she come to me? We could have faced this together. Grace shook her head, her hair whipping about in the rising wind. She was scared, Tom. She thought she was keeping you safe by keeping you in the dark. The people involved in this, they wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone in their way. Fear gripped him, cold and unyielding. Who are these people? What do they want with my daughter? They're trying to reclaim the land, to harness its secrets. They believe there's hidden power in the soil, and Lily has become a key to unraveling it. She carries a burden, one she may not even fully understand. The key you found? It's a symbol, a piece of a larger puzzle. His heart raced as her words sunk in. Lily involved in something so perilous? The innocent girl he knew, was she in danger? Tom clenched his fists, the reality hitting him hard. What do I need to do? Grace's eyes softened, as if she were seeing not only a father but a man lost among his fears. We need to find her before it's too late. We need to decode the mystery before they do. Just then, another crack of thunder echoed, closer this time, shaking the ground beneath them. Tom felt a knot forming in his stomach. Could he really step into that dark world, to face whatever lay hidden not only about the land but about his own daughter? Are you with me? He asked, his voice steady but laced with emotion. He had to do this for Lily. I won't let you go alone, Grace said, determination shining through. But it won't be easy. There will be risks and we'll need to keep our eyes open. As they moved toward the barn, a flicker of hope ignited in Tom's chest. The storm roared above them, but he felt a fire within, an urging to push through the fear. They had to uncover the truth. And just as they reached for the barn doors, the sky shattered open, pouring rain down in torrents. It was as if nature itself was washing away the past, clearing the way for whatever truth lay ahead. But just before they stepped into the darkness, a distant howl echoed through the fields. A cry that didn't belong to either of them. Tom turned, body taut with tension. What was out there? Grace, did you hear that? What was that? Her voice trembled slightly, uncertainty creeping back in. The night held answers but also shadows. And as they stood on the brink of discovery, both of them with racing hearts, Tom knew they were not just facing the storm. They were on the cusp of something much bigger. What awaited them on the other side of those barn doors? Could it lead him to Lily? Or would it unravel everything he thought he knew? Tom's heart pounded in his chest, a wild drumbeat of anxiety and determination. He exchanged a quick glance with Grace, who looked equally unsettled. The howl, lingering in the air, tugged at something primal inside him. They could not afford to hesitate. With a firm grasp, He pushed the barn door open, the old wood creaking in protest. Darkness enveloped them thick and heavy, but the storm outside painted fleeting flashes of light that illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air. "What if we're too late?" Tom murmured, stepping inside, his voice a whisper against the thunder rumbling above. Grace took a cautious step forward, shining a flashlight in the dim interior. "We won't let that happen. We'll find her." The scent of damp earth and aged hay filled the barn, triggering memories from simpler times when they had spent weekends repairing fences or tending to the animals. Now it felt different, charged with an urgency that sent shivers racing down Tom's spine. "Where do we even start?" he asked, scanning the shadows. "There has to be something here, something Lily left behind," Grace replied. She approached a stack of wooden crates near the back, her flashlight beam flickering over them. "We need to look through everything." Tom joined her and they started sifting through old tools, boxes of half-used paint, and forgotten memories. Each item felt like a ghost, a reminder of everything they had built together as a family. He took a deep breath, steadying himself against the weight of nostalgia. "Lily had a purpose here," he said, more to himself than to Grace. "She loved this land. Let us hope that love led her to something she can share with us," Grace replied, her fingers brushing over a dusty surface. But before Tom could answer, he noticed something strange at the far edge of the barn. A loose floorboard seemed to shift. He approached, kneeling down to examine it more closely. With a gentle nudge, the floorboard creaked and lifted, revealing an old rusted box beneath. "Grace, look at this," he called out, excitement bubbling in him. Grace hurried over, her eyes wide. "What did you find?" Setting the box down, Tom did his best to open it, the lid barely giving way. As he pried it open, a faint light glimmered from within. Nestled inside was a collection of documents and a weathered journal. The sight of it made Tom's heart race. "This must be it," he murmured, pulling out the journal. Its pages were worn, filled with Lily's hurried writing, sketches of the land, and notes about the legends Grace had mentioned. "I can't believe this." "It could hold answers," Grace said, glancing over his shoulder. As they flipped through the pages, snippets of Lily's thoughts revealed her fears and confessions. "There's something about a pact," Tom read aloud, his voice trembling. "Something about the land not belonging to just us." Another howl echoed outside, sharper this time, more insistent. Tom and Grace shared a glance, that familiar sense of dread creeping back in. "We need to be quick," Grace said, urgency rippling in her voice. "If she's being hunted, we are running out of time." Just then, as if summoned by their resolve, the barn doors slammed shut with a loud bang, rattling the very shackles of their world. Heavy footsteps stomped outside, and shadows loomed against the wood. "Tom, we're not alone," Grace whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Adrenaline surged through him. "We need to hide. Now." They ducked behind a row of crates just as the door finally burst open, revealing men silhouetted against the stormy night. Tom gripped the journal tightly, his mind racing. What secrets had Lily uncovered? And would they lead him to her safety or doom? Even as fear coursed through him, he knew they were standing at the brink of discovery, for better or worse. Could the very history they were about to unveil become the key to saving his daughter? Heart racing, Tom pressed himself against the cool, rough wood of the crate, trying to control the hammering in his chest. He could hear the men outside, their voices a low murmur, punctuated by the rumble of thunder. The journal sat between him and Grace, a silent witness to the chaos surrounding them. "What do we do?" Grace whispered, her eyes darting nervously toward the open door. Tom's mind raced. "We wait. Make sure they don't see us." He forced his breathing to steady, squeezing the journal tighter like a lifeline. The men stepped inside, their figures hulking and shadowy, obscured by the dim light. "Check everywhere," one barked out. "She can't have gone far. Keep your eyes peeled." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. They were hunting for Lily. He glanced at Grace, whose face mirrored his own fear. He wished he could tell her it would be okay, that they would find Lily and everything would return to normal. But the gnawing uncertainty in his gut said otherwise. As the men began to search the barn, moving crates and kicking aside debris, Tom's mind raced, desperately trying to piece together what he had learned from Lily's journal. The pact. What could it mean? "I think it's about the land," Tom whispered, drawing Grace's attention. She mentioned that it doesn't belong to us. Maybe it's connected to why they're here? Grace's brow furrowed. What if someone believes they have a right to it? Then we need to understand what that right is before it's too late. The men were getting closer, moving deliberately, grunting as they jostled things about. Tom could make out murmurs of their conversation, frustrated inquiries about seeking hidden passages, mentions of old legends. Suddenly, one of the men stopped, his eyes narrowing as he pointed at the crate they were hiding behind. "What's this?" he asked, his voice thick with suspicion. Tom's heart raced anew. "They're going to find us," he hissed, looking at Grace, who was visibly trembling. Then a loud crash filled the barn as another crate toppled, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the roar of the storm. Tom seized Grace's arm, pulling her to the side as the men turned, momentarily distracted. "Let us make a run for it," he whispered fiercely. "Out the back door." With sweat trickling down his forehead, he could hear his pulse in his ears. They edged toward the rear of the barn, Tom pressing his body against the wall, willing his breath to be silent. Just as they reached the back, something caught Tom's eye. Lily's journal, still resting on the crate. He hesitated, torn between his instinct to flee and the unshakable urge to keep her words close. "Tom," Grace urged urgently. He grasped the journal, shoving it under his arm. "I can't leave it behind." They slipped out the back through the narrow wooden door, no more than a shadow against the night. The tempest raged above, lightning slashing across the sky, illuminating a narrow path ahead. "Where do we go?" Grace whispered as they crept away from the barn, hearts pounding. "Toward the river," Tom replied, glancing back at the barn where the men were still searching. "We need to get somewhere safe." As they made their way through the mud and rain, the sounds of their pursuers faded into the distance. But a heavy weight settled in Tom's chest. The journal pressed hard against him, containing secrets that could change everything. "This could explain why they want her," he muttered, more to himself than to Grace. She caught his arm, her eyes reflecting concern. "We can't let them take her," Grace urged, voice choked with emotion. "I know," Tom replied, determination settling in. "I won't let anything happen to her." They reached the edge of the river, the current thrumming with energy under the harsh light of the storm. It was wild and tumultuous, just like their situation. Suddenly, from behind them, a voice boomed down the pathway. "They went this way. Move." Tom and Grace exchanged frantic looks, fear bubbling up once again. "Tom," Grace's voice trembled, "we need to make a choice. Now." And in that moment, the storm became a roar over his heart, drowning out everything except one thought blazing in his mind. It was now or never. Would they risk everything to uncover the truth, or retreat and seek safety from something they didn't yet understand? The river lay before them, an undulating mass of murky brown, swirling with the rain's essence. Tom could feel the current's pull, as if it knew their fate, whispering secrets of hope and danger. "Tom, we can't go back," Grace said, her voice barely breaking through the cacophony of the storm. "They're closing in." He nodded, clutching the journal tighter, every fiber of his being drawn to the truths Lily had uncovered. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon him. Could they really uncover why Lily had been targeted, and why the land mattered so much? "We jump," he decided, though doubt gnawed at him. A second later, he pushed the dread aside. "If we can cross the river, we'll put some distance between us and those men." "What if we get swept away?" Grace asked, her brow furrowed, but her eyes were filled with fierce determination. "I'd rather risk that than let them find us." He took a deep breath, steeling himself. The thunder cracked overhead, a reminder of the storm's fury, and adrenaline surged through him. Grace moved closer, her hand brushing against his. "Together?" "Together," he affirmed, and with that, they stepped down the embankment, the mud sucking at their feet as they approached the raging water. The river rushed past, a living entity of chaos and strength. It was terrifying and exhilarating. The first footfall was tentative, the icy water lapping at their knees, pulling them in with fierce urgency. Tom felt panic rise as Grace stumbled, but he grabbed her arm, anchoring her back. "Don't let go," he shouted over the roaring torrent. Determined not to let fear consume them, they pressed onward, the cold water swirling around their waists. The river fought them with every step, but for Tom the stakes were even higher. He wasn't just battling the current. He was fighting for Lily and their future. They forged ahead, the water rising to their chests, every surge feeling like a test of their resolve. Tom's muscles screamed, but he couldn't give in. He glanced back, catching a glimpse of the dark figures creeping along the riverbank. They had to hurry. With a final push, they lunged for the opposite bank. Tom's foot slipped on the slick clay, and he fell, the water crashing over him. In that moment of chaos, all he could think about was Grace. "Tom!" she screamed, panic flaring in her voice. He fought against the current, scrambling up to the surface. Grasping for solid ground, he finally clawed himself onto the bank, gasping for air. "Are you okay?" he shouted, still dizzy with shock. "Yeah, I am fine." Grace pulled herself up beside him, soaked and breathless, but with a fierce look of determination. Tom looked back at the river, the shadows of their pursuers now distant figures against the swirling chaos of the storm. Maybe, just maybe, they had managed to buy themselves some time. Breathing heavily, Tom steadied himself and glanced at Grace. "We need to keep moving. We can't stop until we're sure we're safe." As they trudged away from the banks, the rain began to let up, and the wind started to die down. Somewhere in that weighty silence that followed the storm, a question nagged at him. "What do we do with the journal?" he said, suddenly aware of how vital the contents could be. Not just for Lily, but for their very lives. Grace looked at him, squinting into the dim light. "It could hold the key to her safety or lead us deeper into danger." Tom felt the significance of those words settle deep within him. They were at a crossroads, and the choices they made from here on could define everything. Without warning, he heard the sound of footsteps again, this time much closer. The thought of discovery sent a chill through him. "Tom!" Grace's voice wavered. "They're coming." "What now?" In that moment, with the weight of the journal heavy in his hands and uncertainty swirling deeper than the river they had crossed, Tom faced a decision that could change everything. Did they confront what lay ahead, or take a chance on an uncertain path in the shadows? As he debated, the distant thunder rumbled once more, a haunting echo of what was yet to come. He took a deep breath. "We find a way to uncover the truth, and no matter what happens, we do it together." But would that choice finally lead them to Lily or into the very heart of the danger that lurked in the night? Tom's heart raced as he and Grace ducked behind a cluster of trees, their breaths heavy in the sudden eerie silence that followed the storm. They had just crossed the river, but that sense of safety felt ephemeral. The shadows of their pursuers loomed all too vividly in his mind. "Are you sure the journal is worth this?" Grace whispered, peering cautiously into the dim light filtering through the trees. "What if they find us, Tom?" He glanced at the battered leather journal, still clasped tightly in his hands. Each turn of the pages revealed more than just words. It held Lily's secrets, the essence of her fight. Tom thought about her determination, how she had sacrificed so much. "We can't give up her fight." "Not now." A snapping twig nearby made both of them freeze, their hearts pounding in their chests. The sound of footsteps grew louder. They were close, too close. Panic surged through him, cutting deeper than the fear itself. He grasped Grace's arm and pulled her close. "Follow me," he whispered urgently, scanning for another path, another way out. They found a narrow trail that wound deeper into the underbrush, away from the river. Tom's hands brushed against wet branches, slipping as he led them onward. The rain had left everything slick, every step a potential misstep. He glanced back to check on Grace. Her face was pale, eyes wide, but determination mirrored his own. He couldn't let fear consume them. They were in this together, and they would find a way. The faint sound of voices drew closer. It wasn't just footsteps, they were coming. "Why do they want the journal so badly?" Grace whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "What's in it?" Tom shook his head, wishing he knew more. "Answers. Something about the land, its ties to our family, maybe. Why Lily was targeted." As they pressed onward, a rustle nearby caught his attention. He turned sharply, instinctively shielding Grace. Instinct flared, and they fell back against a tree. The footsteps stopped, hovering just out of sight. "I can't believe they're after us," Grace said, her breath a soft whisper of disbelief. "It's unreal because of a piece of paper." "I know," Tom replied, his voice steadied by a newfound resolve. "But it's more than that. This could change everything." The shadows moved again, almost like phantoms in the gloom. Tom felt a surge of urgency. We need to find cover somewhere we can see them coming. Just as they started to move again, a shout echoed through the trees. They went this way. Keep searching. Knowing they were hot on their trail sent a jolt of fear through him. Tom. Grace's voice strained with worry. What if they catch us? What's the plan? Her concerns mirrored his own, amplifying that gnawing fear. He could feel the walls closing in. Yet, in that moment, a flicker of determination ignited within him. We keep running until we can't anymore. We'll outsmart them, Grace. We must. As they rounded a bend, Tom abruptly halted. The path opened up to a clearing below, where he spotted an old shed, its wooden door barely hanging on its hinges, barely illuminated by the fading light. There. We can hide in there. They dashed for the shed, adrenaline flooding his veins. Tom pushed the door open just enough for them to slip inside, darkness enveloping them. The air was thick and musty, hinting at a forgotten past. They huddled together in the unfaltering silence, holding their breaths. As they listened to the fading footsteps outside, Tom risked a glance at Grace. Her eyes were wide, reflecting equal parts fear and hope. What if we don't make it? What if we will? Promise. We're not done fighting yet, he declared, the words tasting like steel on his tongue. In the silence that followed, a thought pressed heavily upon him. They were caught between danger and hope, and the choices they made from here would shape everything. Tom! Grace murmured, breaking through his thoughts. What if we find something in the shed? Something important. He frowned, curiosity mingling with dread. What do you mean? Just as Grace turned the corner into the darkness, a flicker of something metallic caught the dim light. Was it possible they weren't the only ones hiding secrets within these shadows? The tense silence stretched further, and all Tom could think was that if there was something hidden here, it might just hold the answers they desperately needed. But before he could voice his thoughts, a loud crash outside made them both jump. Is that them? Grace gasped, eyes darting nervously. Only one way to find out, Tom said, his heart racing as he reached for the creaking door. What or who awaited them on the other side? Tom pushed the door open just enough to peer outside, his heart pounding, the adrenaline coursing through him. The storm had begun to ebb, but thick clouds still hung overhead, casting a brooding darkness that mirrored his uncertainty. The faint sounds of shouting and rustling drifted through the trees, sending chills racing down his spine. Tom, be careful, Grace whispered urgently, her voice trembling as she gripped his arm. He nodded, focusing on the clearing beyond the shed. The figures of the men were becoming vague silhouettes in the shifting twilight, clearly searching, combing through the underbrush. Anxiety swelled in his chest. They couldn't be caught now. It was their chance to dig deeper into the mystery surrounding Lily. Let us find a different way out, he whispered back, keeping his voice low. He scanned the sides of the shed, searching for an escape route that wouldn't lead them into the arms of danger. Suddenly, a faint glimmer caught his eye from beneath the loose floorboard, a slant of light poking through the cracks. Over here, he hissed, moving quickly as Grace followed closely behind. He crouched down, carefully lifting the worn board, revealing a small hidden compartment lined with burlap. Peering inside, his breath hitched. What lay nestled there wasn't just any relic. It was a map, old, frayed, and filled with markings he didn't recognize. Look at this, he breathed, pulling out the parchment. Grace leaned over his shoulder, her eyes widening as she traced the contours with her fingers. These must be locations tied to the land and its history. Tom, this could reveal everything we need to know. Yeah, but we have to get away first. He glanced back at the door, the shadows shifting ominously. We'll have to follow this map, but we can't do it here. A loud shout echoed outside the shed, the sound sending a bolt of urgency through him. They're getting closer. Tom carefully folded the map, tucking it under his shirt. We're going out the back. Follow me. Without a moment's hesitation, he moved toward the far end of the shed, pushing through the slightly ajar back door. The rain-slicked ground outside was treacherous, but he steadied himself as he motioned for Grace to follow. They pressed against the wall of the shed, hearts pounding, listening intently. The footsteps of their pursuers were growing closer, but a quick glance revealed that the men were still focused on the front. Now, Tom urged, slipping silently into the thick underbrush. They moved swiftly, careful not to make a sound, adrenaline propelling them away from the chaos they had narrowly escaped. Tom's mind raced, heart hammering in sync with his feet. The urgency of the moment felt like a living creature wrapping itself around him, intensifying the need to discover the truth without losing what mattered most: his daughter. "We need to head to the river," he whispered to Grace, who nodded, her expression resolute. "It's south, the only place we can regroup and figure this out. We can follow the map from there." They navigated through the underbrush, keeping low, the world around them quietening in a way that heightened their senses. After what felt like an eternity, they finally broke through to the riverbank, water rushing past, the energy crackling like electricity in the air. "Where do we even start with this map?" Grace asked breathlessly, glancing anxiously around. Tom pulled out the parchment, carefully unfolding it. The markings seemed to indicate something near the old oak tree by the pastures. "It's connected to the legends Grace mentioned. Let us get moving then." "We don't have time," Grace urged, determination shining in her eyes. As they hurried along the riverbank, the landscape unfolded before them, filled with memories of laughter, hard work, and love, the very essence of the life he had built with Lily. But right then everything shifted. A loud crack rang out nearby as a tree branch fell, the sound echoing ominously. They both froze. The air thickened, charged with apprehension. Tom reached for Grace's hand tightly. "We need to stay together. Remember, we're doing this for Lily." They pressed forward, hearts pounding as the weight of their goal settled deep within them. At the edge of the pasture stood the ancient oak, gnarled and tall, its branches reaching like arms toward the heavens. "We have to dig around its roots," Tom decided decisively. He felt the pull of something ancient, a secret waiting to be unveiled. The clue had to be there. "Tom, look," Grace called, pointing as something glinted in the soft light filtering through the trees. Tom rushed over, excitement swirling within him. "What is it?" There, half buried in the dirt at the base of the tree, was a small metal box, adorned with intricate designs similar to those on the key he found. It felt heavy in his hands, the weight of legacy and hope. They exchanged a glance, the realization dawning between them. "We've found something big," Grace whispered, her eyes round with anticipation. He knelt, heart racing, as he opened the box. The contents spilled forth old letters, photographs, documents, and a small pendant, shimmering like a beacon of possibilities. "These tell the story of the land," he whispered, flipping through the fragile papers. "These are Lily's answers." But before they could absorb the weight of it all, hidden dangers threatened once again. Shouts echoed on the wind, familiar voices searching for them, closing in fast. "Time's up," Grace exclaimed, eyes wide. "What do we do?" "Grab what we can and head toward the caves on the north side," he instructed, urgency racing through him. "It's our only chance to find cover." As they stuffed the letters and photographs into their bags, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. With a final glance over his shoulder at the oak tree, a sense of purpose surged within him. They couldn't let this piece of their family's past slip away. The truth about the land, about Lily, was unfolding before them. "Let us go," he shouted. They raced into the woods, hearts pounding together, resolute in their journey to reclaim not just the ranch, but the very essence of their family and the love that had always anchored them. As they pressed on, the shadows lingered behind them, but hope pulsed brighter than fear. In that moment, Tom knew they would face whatever lay ahead together. Suddenly, the earth shook beneath them, not from nature's hand, but from a deeper truth that was ready to be unearthed. They were stepping into the unknown, together fighting against a storm, but more importantly, a fight for tomorrow. When they emerged from the tree line, the future awaited them, teetering on the edge of revelation. But the urgency in their hearts burned brighter than their fears. "Hold on, Lily," Tom whispered fiercely. "We're coming for you." And with that, they plunged into the labyrinth of the unknown, seeking answers, love, and protection, racing against time to pull one more against the storm. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.